The crunch beneath my shoes didn't sound real at first. It felt like stepping into a snowstorm made of styrofoam. My living room, my own living room, was buried under a sea of white packing peanuts, knee-deep and glimmering in the soft morning light. Every movement sent them swirling, floating up and landing again in a static storm of chaos. My couch was gone. The TV had vanished. Even the air vents hissed softly, coughing out stray flakes of plastic like they were choking on the joke. The room smelled faintly of cardboard and cheap perfume. My cat Miso perched on the arm of the only visible chair, his tail twitching as if he was trying to make sense of the madness. I took another step forward, half laughing, half furious. The sound echoed off the walls, absurd and hollow. For a moment I honestly wondered if I was still dreaming. You ever have that second where confusion and anger collide in your head? That was me, standing in a fake winter wonderland made of synthetic garbage. I bent down, grabbed a handful of peanuts, and let them fall through my fingers. They clung to my skin like they didn't want to let go. Then I saw it, the front door, wide open. A gust of wind pushed more peanuts inside, scattering them into the hallway. Even my porch was covered in white. I stepped outside and looked down the quiet suburban street. Perfect lawns, matching mailboxes, the usual beige houses that screamed conformity. And there, 2 doors down, was Scarlett. Scarlett, the self-proclaimed guardian of the HOA, was trimming her rose bushes like she was competing for a gardening trophy. Red floral blouse, black skirt, hair pinned into a flawless bun. She looked up, met my eyes, and waved with that sweet, sharp smile of hers, the kind that hides teeth. "Rough morning, cabin?" she called out. Her voice dripped with syrupy politeness that made my jaw tighten. "Yeah," I said, forcing a grin. "Looks like I got hit by a packing supply truck." "Oh dear," she replied, feigning concern. "You should really talk to the HOA about neighborhood security. Things like this can hurt property values." I stared a second too long. She turned back to her roses, humming. Back inside, I noticed a security camera on my porch. The plug was hanging loose. I hadn't touched it. Someone had. My pulse quickened. I opened my phone to check the other cameras. The outdoor feed was dead, but the indoor one was still recording. Static flickered, then a grainy playback appeared from the night before. Around midnight, headlights swept across my driveway. A woman's silhouette stood in the doorway, rolling in massive plastic bags one after another. Her movements were quick, deliberate. She dumped bag after bag across my living room like she was feeding an obsession. Then, for a brief second, the camera caught her reflection in the window. Scarlett. Same floral blouse. Same smug expression she wore every time she cited me for something trivial, like leaving my trash bin out too long. My stomach dropped. The unplugged camera, the smug wave, her fake sympathy. It all fit. This wasn't random. It was revenge. I paused the footage and zoomed in on her reflection until her face filled the screen. Even through the glass I could see it, pure satisfaction. That look people like her wear when they think they've won. My phone buzzed. A message from the HOA group chat popped up. Scarlett had posted, "Neighbors, please remember to store packaging waste responsibly. Let's keep our community clean." Followed by a laughing emoji. She was mocking me. Publicly. I dropped into the only clean chair, running a hand through my hair. The faint whir of the AC filled the room, struggling to breathe through the mess. The more I looked, the worse it got. Every shelf, every crevice, even under the rug, packed tight with those tiny white pellets. She must have spent hours doing this, all because I didn't repaint my mailbox on her timeline, because I called her out in the last HOA meeting for trying to find me over Halloween lights. I remembered that meeting clearly. Scarlett had stood at the front, clipboard in hand, preaching about community cohesion like she was running for office. I'd had enough. I quoted the bylaws line by line until even the HOA president looked embarrassed. Her face that night had shifted, from polite irritation to pure hatred. And before leaving, she had leaned in close and whispered, "You'll regret this." I thought she was bluffing. I was wrong. Scarlett didn't bluff, she planned. I grabbed a garbage bag and started scooping peanuts, but it was pointless. The more I cleaned, the more they spread. Each movement stirred them up again, filling the air with a faint crackle like static laughter. Miso darted into the kitchen and vanished under a wave of white. My chest tightened. This wasn't just a prank. It was a statement. A car rolled past outside. I peeked through the blinds and saw Scarlett chatting with another neighbor. She pointed at my house, laughing. My jaw clenched. All right, Scarlett, you want to play games? Let's play. I opened my phone again and replayed the footage, frame by frame, memorizing every detail. The timestamp, her car headlights, the reflection in the window, even the brand of tape she'd used on the garbage bags. Every second was another nail in her coffin, but I stopped myself. Confronting her now would be useless. She'd twist the story like she always did. People like Scarlett thrive on denial. She'd claim I faked it or accuse me of harassment. The HOA would believe her. They always did. No, I needed proof no one could deny. Outside, Scarlett's laughter drifted faintly through the open doorway, light and mocking. The afternoon sun turned the sea of peanuts into something almost beautiful, shimmering and unreal like a dream right before it turns dark. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Scarlett. Hey Kevin, sorry to hear about your little incident. If you need help cleaning up, I know a great service. Very affordable. My grip tightened around the phone. She wasn't just taunting me, she was daring me to respond. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to calm down. My father used to say, never fight fire with fire. Fight it with gasoline and a match of your own choosing. So I smiled. I unplugged the vacuum, sat down in the middle of the chaos, and hit record on my phone. The camera faced me with the wreckage of foam behind. Scarlett, I said quietly, almost conversational, you might have just made the most expensive mistake of your life. I didn't know how yet, but I knew this much. She wasn't getting away with it. Not this time. Miso meowed softly from under the couch. The only witness to my quiet promise, I stood, brushed the peanuts off my jeans and looked toward the doorway, where the white trail led outside into the bright, peaceful street. The neighborhood was calm again, too calm. Scarlett's laughter had stopped. Only the faint whistle of wind and the soft squeak of styrofoam filled the silence. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and stared at the frozen frame on my phone. Scarlett's reflection in my window mid-laugh. That was all I needed, because what she didn't know yet was that her little prank had just cost her everything. The cleanup took 2 full days. By the end, it felt like I'd been living inside a recycling bin. Every time I thought I'd cleared the last peanut, another would tumble out from under the couch or flutter down from a vent. The static made them stick to everything. The walls, my clothes, even Miso's tail. At one point I laughed from pure exhaustion. Somewhere in all this chaos was Scarlett's perfect little victory. She probably thought I'd lose my temper, storm over, and make a scene. Exactly what she wanted. That was her power, control through provocation, but not this time. I wasn't giving her the satisfaction. When I stepped outside that morning, the neighborhood looked picture perfect again. Lawns trimmed, cars washed, porch flags waving in identical rhythm. The kind of polished order Scarlett lived for. And there she was, clipping her hedges with surgical precision. When she saw me, her smile bloomed instantly. "Morning, Kevin," she called, cheerful and smug. "How's the cleanup going?" I pretended to check my phone. "Almost done," I said lightly. "Found a few stragglers in the toilet tank, but hey, at least they're biodegradable, right?" Her laughter was bright but hollow. Her eyes stayed sharp, studying me. "Well," she said smoothly, "accidents happen. You should be more careful about who you let near your home." I met her gaze. "You're absolutely right," I said evenly. "You never know who might be watching." For the briefest moment, her smile faltered. Then she brushed it off and turned back to her hedges. That tiny flicker told me everything. I was under her skin. That evening, I drove to the HOA office. The small stucco building smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and smug self-importance. I walked straight to the reception counter, where residents usually picked up paperwork. But instead of an empty desk, I found Scarlett sitting with the HOA president. Mr. Kamalalari sat behind the counter, retired, tanned, and perpetually confused. She was mid-conversation, but when she spotted me, her tone shifted to that syrupy sweetness people use when they're pretending to care. "Oh, Kevin," she chirped. "We were just discussing the incident at your house. So unfortunate. Mr. Malalari thinks it might have been local teens playing a prank. Teens who brought industrial-sized bags of packing peanuts?" I said dryly. "Yeah, sounds like a wild night of rebellion." Malalari gave a nervous little chuckle. "These things happen, son. We can't blame anyone without proof." Scarlett leaned forward slightly, her voice soft but laced with venom. "Do you have any proof, Kevin?" The way she said it made my jaw tighten. She knew I did. Just not the kind of proof she expected. Working on it, I replied, keeping my tone calm. Turns out my security setup's better than you think. She tilted her head, just enough for her earring to catch the light. Well, she said smoothly, be sure to share it with us when you have something credible. I left without another word. The night air outside was cool, but my thoughts burned hot. Scarlett wanted to play the innocent neighbor fine. I'd let her. For now. Back home, I pulled up the footage again. That half-second reflection of her face, faint, distorted, but there. Not courtroom-proof, but enough to build on. I scrubbed through every frame, tracking her movements, the sweep of her car's headlights, the faint glint of her license plate through the window. Piece by piece, I built a timeline. Arrival 12:01 a.m., 47 minutes of careful work. Departure 12:48 a.m. Then I sent the clips to Jaden, an old friend and digital forensics consultant who owed me a favor. Can you clean up the footage? I asked over the phone. There was a pause followed by a low whistle. Man, that's a lot of peanuts. Yeah, I can enhance it. Looks like she didn't even bother with gloves. You might have prints. Perfect, I said. Let me know when it's ready. When I hung up, exhaustion and grim satisfaction tangled inside me. I could almost hear Scarlett's smug voice in my head, probably laughing to herself over a glass of wine, telling someone how easy it was to get under my skin. But she didn't understand. Patience is a weapon, too. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Jaden had sent the cleaned-up footage. I opened it, and there she was, clear as daylight. The reflection sharpened, her car's license plate visible, every movement undeniable. It was everything I needed. I printed the stills, attached the timestamps, and sent them to my insurance company with a property damage claim. The cleanup estimate came to $3,140. I smiled. Scarlett definitely wouldn't see that number coming. 2 days later, a letter appeared in my mailbox. Another complaint from the HOA. Disruptive noises during cleanup, it said. Apparently, vacuuming after 7 p.m. violated quiet hours. I laughed out loud. She just couldn't help herself. The pettiness was instinctive. That evening, I stepped outside with the letter still in hand. Scarlett's porch light flicked on instantly like she'd been waiting. Working late again? She called out, voice light but taunting. Yeah, I said. Paperwork, her grin widened. Good. Always nice when neighbors take rules seriously. Trust me, I said, sliding the letter into my jacket. I'm taking everything very seriously. Inside, I opened my laptop and drafted one final email, this time to the entire HOA board. I attached the insurance report, the photo evidence, and the copy of the police property damage form I'd just filed online. I didn't mention Scarlett by name. I didn't need to. The footage spoke for itself. By the next afternoon, my inbox lit up with replies. One from the HOA president requesting an urgent review meeting, another from my insurance adjuster confirming the claim was approved, and one more from an unknown sender. You shouldn't have done that, no name. But I didn't need one. That evening, someone knocked on my door. I opened it to find Scarlett standing there, arms crossed, that tight smile stretched across her face. Can we talk? She asked, her voice low and controlled. I leaned against the door frame. About what? She glanced around, lowering her voice further. I don't appreciate being accused of things without proof. I shrugged. Then I guess you'll really appreciate what happens when there is proof. Her composure cracked for just a second. You think you're clever, don't you? No, I said calmly. Just thorough. She took a step closer. You're making a mistake, Kevin. This neighborhood runs on cooperation. You keep pushing and people will start siding against you. I smiled faintly. Then I guess we'll see who's really following the rules. She stared at me for a long, tense moment before turning sharply and walking back toward her house. The echo of her heels on the pavement faded into the night, leaving behind only the whisper of wind through the hedges. Inside, I sank onto the couch and exhaled. My heart was pounding, not from fear but from anticipation. She was worried, and that was new. For the first time, the balance had shifted. I looked around my freshly cleaned living room. The faint scent of disinfectant had replaced the stench of plastic. On the mantel sat a small glass jar, half filled with leftover packing peanuts. A reminder of what she'd done, and of what was still to come. I turned off the lights, opened my laptop, and began compiling every email, timestamp and video clip into a single file. The folder name? Scarlet Finale. As I saved the last document, Miso jumped into my lap, curling up as if sensing the calm before the storm. Outside, a car door slammed. Scarlet's. I peered through the blinds. She was pacing in her driveway, phone pressed to her ear, her gestures sharp and frantic. The sight made me smile. The queen of the HOA was starting to lose her composure. Tomorrow's meeting would decide everything. And this time, Scarlet wouldn't be the one in control. The meeting was held in the HOA clubhouse, a square, sterile room that smelled faintly of coffee and tension. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering just enough to make the silence feel electric. A long table sat in the center, lined with board members and a few residents pretending they had somewhere better to be. Scarlet was already there, perched at the far end like royalty ready to pass judgment. Her blouse was crimson today, matching the flush on her cheeks. She looked up when I entered, lips tightening into a polite, poisonous smile. "Kevin," she said coolly, "I hope this doesn't take long. Some of us have real work in the morning." "Don't worry," I replied, placing a folder on the table. "It won't take long at all." Mr. Malalari cleared his throat. "Let's get started. Mr. Kevin, you requested this meeting to address an issue of property damage?" "Yes, sir," I nodded. "An incident occurred last week involving my home. I've compiled the evidence for review." Scarlet let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Evidence? Are we still entertaining that ridiculous story about packing peanuts? This is a waste of everyone's time." I opened the folder and pulled out a single photo, a still frame from my indoor camera, showing her reflection clearly in the window. I set it in front of the board. The room went silent. "That's not me," she said quickly, her tone shifting from confident to defensive. Anyone could have that haircut. Another photo slid across the table, her car's license plate visible right outside my house at 12:48 a.m. Her voice faltered. "You can't even tell where that is." I turned to the projector. "You can if you play the video." The enhanced footage played on the wall, grainy but unmistakable. Scarlet hauling garbage bags into my doorway, a storm of white packing peanuts spilling behind her. The room watched in stunned silence. The only sound was the soft hum of the projector. When it ended, no one moved. Scarlet's face was pale, her lips pressed into a tight line. Mr. Malalari rubbed his temples. "Scarlet, is that your vehicle?" "It's not," she stammered. "This isn't fair. He's twisting this. You all know how vindictive he can be." I leaned forward. "You unplugged my security camera, Scarlet. You trespassed, vandalized my property, and caused nearly $4,000 in damage. I've already filed an insurance claim and a police report. I just wanted the HOA to see exactly who's been representing them." A murmur rippled through the room. Scarlet looked around, desperate for support, but no one met her eyes. Even her usual allies stared down at the table. Mr. Malalari sighed. "This is serious. If this footage is accurate, it constitutes both a violation of community rules and local law. We can't ignore this." Scarlet's composure shattered. "You can't believe this. He's been targeting me for months. This is harassment." I lifted the cleaning service estimate and the insurance adjuster's form. "It's not harassment, Scarlet. It's accountability. You'll be paying for it." She shot to her feet, her chair screeching backward. "You smug little—" "That's enough," Malalari snapped, his voice sharp for the first time. "Sit down." She did, though her hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. It rattled softly against the table. "Effective immediately," Malalari continued. "The board will suspend Ms. Scarlet's membership privileges pending review. We'll also recommend she reimburse Mr. Kevin for damages. Until then, she's relieved of her duties as acting enforcement officer." Scarlet's eyes widened. "You can't do that." "I can," he said firmly. "And I just did." The gavel hit the table with a dull thud. Meeting adjourned. I gathered my papers slowly, letting the moment settle. When I looked up, Scarlet was still staring at me, not angry anymore, but hollow. The look of someone realizing the game they built their life around had finally collapsed. Outside, the air felt cooler, cleaner. I stepped into the evening, listening to the faint rhythm of sprinklers turning on across the perfectly trimmed lawns. My phone buzzed a message from my insurance agent. Scarlet's liability coverage under the HOA would handle the payout. Her fines alone would cost her several thousand more. A week later, the neighborhood was buzzing with gossip. Someone, probably a board member, had leaked the footage. It spread through the local Facebook page like wildfire. The caption was short and brutal. HOA queen caught filling neighbor's house with packing peanuts. The comments came fast. Then the memes. Scarlett stopped showing up to meetings. Her once perfect hedges grew wild. The woman who used to march the neighborhood with a clipboard now avoided eye contact completely. One afternoon, I passed her house and saw a for sale sign staked neatly in her yard. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. The silence she left behind was its own kind of reward. Still, the mess she caused lingered. Every few days, I'd find a stray packing peanut hiding under furniture or clinging to my socks. Each one felt like a small reminder of how far she went and how far I was willing to go to stop her. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, methodical, patient. When the cleaning crew finally finished, the foreman handed me the final invoice, $3,840, paid in full by Scarlett's insurance. I thanked him and signed the form, a calm sense of closure settling over me. The war was over. That night, I sat in my spotless living room, the soft hum of the air conditioner filling the quiet. Miso curled up beside me, purring softly. I reached for the small glass jar on the coffee table, plucked out one last peanut, and held it up to the light. It shimmered faintly under the lamp, pale and weightless. "This," I said to Miso, "is what pettiness looks like when it costs $6,000. He blinked at me, unimpressed, then swatted it off the table. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. Outside, a moving truck pulled up to Scarlett's house. Workers loaded boxes quickly under the cold glare of her porch light. She stood on the curb, silent, face half hidden behind dark sunglasses. When she noticed me watching, she turned away, got into her car, and drove off without a word. As the truck disappeared down the street, I closed the blinds and exhaled. Peace had a sound I hadn't realized I'd missed. The sound of nothing at all. No passive-aggressive notes on my door. No fake smiles during morning jogs. No rules about mailbox colors. Just quiet. Still, part of me wondered how someone like Scarlett justified it all. How she rewrote the story in her head so she could still be the hero. Maybe she'd tell people I framed her. Maybe she'd say the board was corrupt. People like her always find new scripts, but it didn't matter anymore. The truth was simple. She filled my house with packing peanuts, and in the end, karma made her pay for every single one. I got up, walked to the mailbox, and opened it. The metal gleamed under the streetlight, bold, unapologetic red. I smiled, thinking about how much that color would have irritated her. And for the first time in a long while, I finally felt free.